No one wants to see your out of context Bible quotes every day.
This is just my personal opinion. Any extreme overnight religious behavior is going to always come off disingenuous to me.
Why are the influencer girlies turning to religion and making all their content religious? Let's talk about it. I know that I can't be the only one that's noticed this, but there's been a rise of influencers turning to Christianity out of nowhere. And it's really weird. I hate finding a creator that I actually like and then seeing them out of nowhere become super religious. I feel like for me, because I'm not religious, I've been around it my whole life and I'm like trying to like deconstruct and stuff as I've gotten older. It's weird, and beyond that, it's not the content that we signed up for initially. There's a creator that I found on TikTok that was talking about this.
I hope the girlies don't take this too deep. But like, I feel like the best thing some influencers can do is keep their religious journey off the internet.
I do think influencers should keep their religious journey offline because there is such a drastic shift in the content. Even though an influencer might be going through like their own spiritual journey, like sharing it online isn't necessary. That's what it just gives. It gives like, oh, I have now found God, I found Jesus, and now the rest of you girls should like hurry up and find Jesus too. And it's just weird because it was like, you were not on that last week, so why are you passing any judgment this week? Like out of nowhere, you are now the captain resident Jesus lover of the world. And it's just like, where did all of that come from? Where did all of that come from, and what gives you the authority? But I think for me, it's like the shaming element. Like, why are you shaming your audience for thinking differently than you do? Okay, so I feel like we can't have this conversation without talking about Talitha Jane. If you don't know who Talitha Jane is a fashion influencer, fashion lifestyle influencer that makes content online. She's a Black girl. I used to really like her content. And then all of a sudden she started posting like all this like Christian stuff and about how like she was like changing and like doing her walk with journey with like Christ and stuff. And I feel like when she did that, everything started to shift because her content started being about that, and she started making it like the content that she was creating before was like unbiblical, and that like the way that she was dressing before wasn't modest. Even though the way that she was dressing before was like perfectly fine, she made it seem like she had to completely change the way that she was dressing out of like nowhere. And she amassed this huge following about the way that she's dressing, and then she like starts to demonize it. Previous content that she made directly goes against her like new viewpoint. So it's like all of those people that were following her are like, are you now demonizing them, what they like and what they like to wear? It's not just that they're becoming religious, which is its own issue in and of itself. It's also that they're pushing it onto their audience.
So I was on Twitter earlier today and I saw somebody was talking about like the church girl. I think it was her name is Mel Mitchell, comedian, love her down. She's talking about how the church girls, you know, the new age Christians and church girls really went to church later in their 20s and early 30s because they want to find a husband and they want to get married. Fast forward, we started talking about Talitha Jane because, well, not we, sorry. They were talking about Talitha Jane, and they were just mentioning like how she went from being whatever type of content creator she was, because I was familiar enough with her content to know that she did like lifestyle and like clothing hauls and stuff like that, but outside of that I don't really know what her whole niche was. But anyway, she went from, I'm getting on here a little too real and too authentic. She went from being a lifestyle content creator and fashion content creator to this Jesus freak. And I'm just going to call it that because quite literally, I remember watching a video of her, like honestly, revamping her whole space with Bible scriptures, Jesus, Bibles everywhere. Like it was a complete 180 of who she used to be to who she became.
Another thing that I wanted to talk about following this Talitha Jane thing is the beauty influencer to Christian influencer wife pipeline. This was happening so much in the YouTube era. Like you would meet an awesome girl on YouTube who would do makeup, who would do natural hair, and you would start to follow her and do her tips and like essentially buy everything she buys. And then slowly but surely she started talking about her faith more, which was cool. You know, it's like, all right, cool, you talking about your faith, but we still doing the makeup. And then lo and behold, she gets engaged. She gets in a relationship, and now all of a sudden she changing her makeup routine because her husband doesn't like this, or she's changing her wardrobe because a Christian wife would never, and da 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 da. And then lo and behold, she's off of YouTube altogether. I say all that to say like what Talitha is essentially, I would say, going through is honestly the beauty influencer to Christian influencer pipeline. These girls have so much, but because they don't have a husband, because they've created some marital aesthetic in their head, they feel like something is like missing, which is fine. Non-beauty influencers feel like that too. It's like it just causes a whole bunch of other issues. And so I feel for Talitha in the fact that, you know, she's essentially living something that how do I say this? She's living something that people that was with OG YouTubers know all too well, but she's living it with a new generation of TikTokers. Because on TikTok, we don't really see that much. I'll be honest, I haven't seen a beauty influencer kind of going down the wife route and Christian content route and completely rebanding. But it was so big on YouTube. Me personally, I just wish Talitha the best. I just hope whatever it is that she's seeking, that she could find it and she could truly have peace, love, and healing in her life. Let me know what y'all think in the comments.
There is a connection between this and the OG YouTuber days. Like, this is not a new concept, but I feel like it's like a part of my generation is like the TikTok one. So it's like I'm seeing like the first real iteration of this. But I think it's so interesting talking about how like a lot of this is fueled by like the desire for a husband. And like I'm queer, so like I don't understand that desire for a husband. And I've already been married before. But there is this push of like what it means to be like a Christian wife and like how you need to show up so that you can be like the perfect wife, and how you need to show up so that you can even get a husband. And I feel like that's a part of the problem of this, is that it's showing that you have to be a certain aesthetic, to be a certain way, to dress a certain way, to look a certain way, to get a husband, and not only get a husband, but a way to be as a Christian wife. I think that that's a part of the problem too. And there's like this centering of men in this discussion, that like you're doing this not just for your own like spiritual belief, but also so that you can get a husband and that you can perform this version of femininity and womanhood. But it's not just like, I would keep coming back to this point, that it's not just that you're doing that, you have an audience and you're placing those kind of values on your audience as well, which low-key feels like a step back from feminism, but like whatever, okay, whatever. You don't have to get into that today. But I think that's really interesting. And I feel like as somebody that has been married before, I think that like there is this idea of like what being a wife is supposed to look like and be like. And this is something that women are like trained up to as like girls, that this is how you're supposed to behave, this is how you're supposed to dress, this is how to be a Proverbs 31 woman. And I think that like all of that like type of like training and mentality is overall problematic for women as a whole, and especially for like Black women. And I just feel like it's so interesting that there's like this message being preached to Black women that you have to be a certain way to find love. I feel like as a woman that grew up with those principles, I even fell into that trap when I was married. Even though I was queer and I wasn't following like a traditional nuclear family, I still had issues with trying to be like the perfect wife. And like a part of that was like I got into the trad wife movement, and like all of this stuff is like very much so connected between Christianity and like being a wife and like motherhood. Like all these things are very much so connected. And so I think that when like Talitha is showing up and being like I am this Christian woman and I am like trying to find a Christian husband, like all of that is like absolutely related, and it's very much so men-centered and patriarchal and not rooted in like being a girl's girl or like feminism by any stretch of the imagination. And it's like, yes, like as a woman you get to decide and choose like who you want to be, but bringing your audience into that type of like rhetoric and that pipeline is in and of itself problematic. Okay, I feel like this creator right here brings up a really good point, so let's just play the clip.
Can we talk about the Christian pipeline? Because I saw a creator make a video on it, and I feel like she completely missed the point, because she kind of falls in the category of Christian pipeline, okay? And if you don't know what that is, it's basically like creators who have been worldly, you know, lived in sin, post about it, and they have now given their life to Christ, and there's just like a drastic change in their content and the way that they act. And of course, if you are, you know, going from, you know, living in the world to being saved, there is going to be a switch in your personality. But I feel like, you know, this creator that I saw who was trying to defend it, I feel like there's 2 points that like make it questionable. Like 2 things. For one, if your transition is very male-centered. Some of these people who I've seen who have, you know, transitioned to Christianity or Christian content, it's very male-centered, and it's very pick me, and it's very clear, I'm giving my life to Christ because I'm ready to get married, okay? And they're, you know, using Christianity as a reason to be basically a pick me.
Like, and no, I'm not gonna say the girl's name, but just think about that one creator who God told her to move to Houston, and then 6 months later she's posting a video about how she moved there for a man who was still in an on and off again relationship with his ex, and basically he didn't choose her, so now she's moving home. But originally God told you to move there, but now you're admitting that you actually moved there for a man, right? I think you have to ask yourself, if I had a glimpse into my future and I could see that, you know, I was not going to meet my husband for another 3 years, and then 2 years after that we would be married, would you still give your life to Christ today? Or would you say, oh, I still have more time to party, I still have more time to, you know, dress like a thot, I still have more time, I'm not going to do it right now? If you had a glimpse into your future and you saw that you never got married, would you still give your life to Christ now? I think that's what some people need to ask themselves. Secondly, the biggest point is the way that people become Christian, and it's completely radical, and they condemn people, and they feel like they have to cut everybody off, and they make these videos screaming in the camera, B. Simone, about, I'm leaving this, you can't be my friend, you can't do that, no, like.
So I feel like what she's saying about, like, she's obviously talking about Talitha Jane, because Talitha Jane ends up moving to Houston for a man and admits it later on, but says it's for God. I think what's so interesting about this conversation is that Talitha and like other girls like Talitha are absolutely doing this because they want husbands. I think that like the push towards like conditioning women to behave, to dress, to do things in a certain way so that they can find a man is problematic. Don't blame Talitha for doing that. We live in a patriarchal society. It's just the fact that like she's contributing to that. And it's just like, it's not fun to like witness as a viewer. The huge problem is that they're shifting their content and they're doing it in like this holier than thou way. And I'm not just trying to call out like Talitha. Talitha is just the best example of it, but it's something that like happens with a lot of different creators. Okay, so overall, this influencer to Christian pipeline is very patriarchal. It's very problematic, and it's really unsettling as a viewer to see that huge shift. It's something that a lot of viewers have a problem with, which is why we're seeing like this conversation spark. These were just my opinions, what I thought about it. Some of the videos that I played today, I don't agree with all of them, so I picked the clips that I agree with the most and I played them. Just want to put that out there. I just want to put that out there so that like if anybody goes back and watches the rest of the clip and it's like, Maya, do you believe in this too? No, I use words that I believe in. But yeah, let me know in the comments what you think, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye, babes.